The word Russia is Scandinavian. The founders of Dublin were Norwegian. The man who conquered England in 1066 descended from Vikings, but he spoke French. The Vikings are remembered for what they destroyed. They should be remembered for what they built. From Normandy to Kiev, from Dublin to the gates of Constantinople, these settlers founded kingdoms that reshaped the map of Europe. To see the pattern, we move west to east, the same direction as the Viking expansion itself. In 911, a Viking warlord named Rollo struck a deal with Charles the Simple, king of the West Franks. The bargain: Rollo receives territory in northwestern France. In return, he defends the Seine River coast from other Viking raiders. The name of that territory, Normandy, means land of the Northmen. It's a linguistic fossil of Viking settlement, still on the map over 1,000 years later. Here, the central paradox of Viking state building first appears. Within 150 years, these Northmen became thoroughly French. They intermarried with local Frankish families, converted to Christianity, and adopted French language and law. William the Conqueror, who launched the Norman invasion of England in 1066, spoke no Scandinavian language at all. Yet the ships stitched into the Bayeux Tapestry, the famous visual chronicle of his conquest, still unmistakably resemble Viking longships. The Scandinavian culture vanished. The political and military structure it created endured for centuries. Normandy wasn't the only place Vikings carved out territory. Across the English Channel, they reshaped an entire country. In the 860s, massive Viking armies invaded England and partitioned it. The eastern half became the Danelaw, territory governed under Danish law and settled by Danish colonists. Before this invasion, England did not exist as a unified state. It was a patchwork of rival kingdoms: Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria, and Wessex. The Vikings destroyed 3 of those kingdoms. Only Wessex survived under King Alfred, later called Alfred the Great. The unintended consequence was extraordinary. Viking destruction forced consolidation. Alfred built a unified resistance, constructing fortified towns and organizing a standing army. His successors gradually reconquered the Danelaw over the next 60 years, completing the process around 930. The Vikings nearly wiped England off the map, and in doing so, they accidentally created it as a unified kingdom for the first time. Ireland saw the same pattern in miniature. Vikings founded Dublin around 841 as a fortified trading port, but the most extraordinary Viking state building happened far to the east. Scandinavian traders and warriors paddled down the Dnieper and Volga rivers from the Baltic toward the Black Sea. They founded fortified trading cities: Novgorod, positioned between the Baltic and the modern Moscow, and Kiev in modern Ukraine. These Scandinavians were called the Rus, the word that became Russia. Kiev grew into the first Russian Scandinavian kingdom, ruled by a dynasty of Scandinavian origin. The very name of the largest country on earth traces back to a band of Viking settlers on the Dnieper River. Now notice something strange across every one of these stories. In each case, the Vikings disappeared, but what they built did not. In Normandy, Scandinavian language died out within 150 years. In the Danelaw, Danish settlers absorbed into the Anglo-Saxon population after reconquest. In Russia, the Scandinavian founding dynasty adopted Slavic language and Byzantine Christianity within 2 to 3 generations. Prince Vladimir, who Christianized the Rus in 988, descended from Scandinavian rulers, but he was baptized under Byzantine rites, governed in Slavic, and built Orthodox churches. The Bayeux Tapestry captures this paradox in thread. Ships that still look Viking, carrying men who spoke only French, ghostly after-images of a vanished identity. The pattern holds in every region: language lost within 2 to 3 generations, political structures enduring for centuries. The Vikings built states and then dissolved into them. Viking state building succeeded across Europe, but it failed at Constantinople spectacularly. The Vikings called it Miklagard, Miko meaning mighty, God meaning city. They attacked in 860 and again in 941. Both times they were crushed. Constantinople's defenses were overwhelming: triple land walls, a great chain barrier across the Golden Horn Harbor, and Greek fire, an incendiary weapon that burned on water. This city had already repelled Persians, Arabs, and Avars. The Vikings were simply outmatched. The failure reveals a critical pattern. Viking state building succeeded in power vacuums, fragmented Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, a weakened Frankish empire, dispersed Slavic tribes. Against a consolidated empire with massive fortifications, their model collapsed. This pattern also clarifies what Viking trading cities really were. Kiev and Novgorod were not open marketplaces. They were fortified settlements surrounded by walls and permanent garrisons. That fortification tells a critical story. These cities existed in hostile territory among populations the Vikings had raided, enslaved, and extracted tribute from. Viking commerce was never pure trade. It was commerce backed by military force, and that combination over decades naturally evolved into governance, taxation, and the permanent apparatus of the state. Step back from the individual stories and look at the full map. Before the Vikings, the Baltic world, the North Atlantic, and the Byzantine Central Asian world had minimal direct contact with each other. Viking river routes through Russia connected Scandinavia to Constantinople and the Silk Road. Viking Atlantic voyages reached Iceland, Greenland, and briefly North America. They built a network stretching from Central Asia to Greenland, an arc of connection unprecedented in early medieval history. They also helped destroy the Carolingian Empire, the dominant political structure of Western Europe. In its place, they seeded the entities that would define the next 1,000 years: the Duchy of Normandy, a unified England, and the Kievan Rus. The Vikings scattered the puzzle pieces of early medieval Europe, the Carolingian Empire, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, the Slavic tribes, and reassembled them into new configurations. Normandy, England, Russia. In every case, the builders vanished into their own creations. They lost their language, their religion, their names. Within 3 generations, a Viking warlord's grandchildren spoke French or English or Slavic and had no memory of the fjords. Yet the structures persisted. The Duchy of Normandy produced the conquest of England. The Kievan Rus became the foundation of the Russian state. Dublin remains the capital of Ireland. The map we inherited is in part a Viking map drawn by people whose own names we've mostly forgotten.